Hey, welcome to the Bitcoin Consciousness Podcast. We are here with Rauri from Australia. Welcome, Rauri.
Hello, Sama. Great to be here. I'm excited. Thank you for making the time.
Yeah, thank you for making the time. So I heard a podcast with you on Merrick's Dabbling Path. That was a nice conversation about your spiritual awakening and your fiat job and everything like that. Did you enjoy that conversation?
Yeah, I think the more I talk about my journey and relating that to Bitcoin and consciousness and all that, the happier I am, and it's part of my awakening and also my healing, I guess. It's a very beautiful thing that I have stumbled across, I guess. And yeah, very grateful that I'm here.
Yeah, it's almost like we are having therapy with each other while others are
Yes,
listening.
I know, but it's great, isn't it? I love it.
Yeah.
Makes me happy.
So I will include a link to that podcast episode in the description for people who want to go back and hear more details about your path and so on. And here I was thinking we will dive deeper into some of the concepts that you touched on there, and
Sure.
and other philosophical or spiritual concepts that have come up in you, because you had a quite short and intensive spiritual awakening. Could you tell us about the last
Mhm.
couple of years? Like,
Okay. Yeah. So uh, the last few years, well, I guess I was in a very dark place during 2019, 2020. Like I didn't know what was wrong. Um, I was very upset. I was, crying for no reasons as well. You know, I had sort of lost my way a little bit. I had, when I say dark places, I mean places where, should my life continue type of questions to myself. But that was a long build up to that situation. It was like a sort of a volcano released during those years. And now I'm out of the other side of it, really, but still continuing on my journey. And I wouldn't regret anything about it at all. It's been eye-opening and heart-opening. It's truly amazing the changes I've gone through.
yeah. So you mentioned that especially the men's group that you did in Australia, in
Yeah,
Queensland, it was a
yeah,
huge awakening for you. Could
yeah.
you
So,
explain how you changed from sort of living outside in and being more reliant on external authority and then to changing from
yeah,
to inside out, living more from inside?
yeah. It's I guess leading up to the men's retreat, I'll refer to it as, because it was a 4-day retreat, specifically for men first of all, and dealing with their pasts, their traumas, and generally anything that they wanted to talk about. Leading into that, I'd done a lot of reading, self-help books, philosophical books, all that. I read a lot of Gabor Mate, Jordan Peterson as well, that type of thing. And I had all the information and was really interested in it, but I wasn't sort of shown how to put that into place into my body and how to delve deeper inside myself, even though I'd read all that material. So going to the retreat was, yeah, an amazing experience. And it showed me how much love was out in the world, but not only out in the world, how much love was in me. And I had the ability to receive and to give love, which was an amazing thing. And I think I'd never experienced such feelings like that in my life. And I'd realized that most people will never experience these feelings in their life. And I replaced all the fear I had with love. And yeah, that's essentially what I took from it. And I continue on that way.
Yeah. And to me, it sounded like you did this shift, because it's on the spiritual path. It's one significant shift when we think that it's about the external world and doing things in the external world that will fix our problems, and we will be happier. So we will have the money, the fame, and all of these. So we work in the external world. And then somewhere around the path, we realize it's actually what's happening inside that is changing the outside. So when you start working on yourself, people change how they act towards you, and like other opportunities open up, and the world outside becomes like a friend. It's friendlier, you can say. And then it becomes even more friendly as we fix even more traumas and stuff inside. Could you say that the men's retreat helped you with that switch?
Oh, 100%. Totally agree. I mean, as you alluded to in the beginning of that, we create stories about our feelings or our thoughts. And if we don't like our feelings or our thoughts, we create a story around that. And we like to blame and shame ourselves for our actions or whatever. And we seek answers externally in our world. And in reality, the answer is inside all of us, inside our hearts. We're carrying the answers with us. And I realized that. And as soon as you realize that, a whole world opens up. And you're right. Things started happening after the retreat that wouldn't normally happen. I put stuff out into the universe and they just landed in my lap. It was amazing. I couldn't believe it. And when I say put it out to the universe, I would do meditation, I'd do some journaling work, and that's the way I put stuff out to the universe. And that made my heart more open. And my heart being more open allowed stuff to flow into me. So yeah.
So it's this transition from going from victim mode, when we feel we're sort of taught in schools and so on that the world is a scary place, and we need to prepare ourselves to meet this scary external world. And then we sort of develop this awareness, and especially when we stop identifying with our thoughts, right? It's like we get a double awareness. So we hear our thoughts, but we also see ourselves having those thoughts.
But it's funny how we think our thoughts and then we entrap our thoughts inside of us, and we build stories upon those entrapped thoughts, and really they are detrimental to us. I see our feelings as energy, and the energy should pass through our body. And as soon as we entrap that energy, that's when things become problems inside ourselves. So yeah, I think the body is a conduit for energy, and we need to we need to sit with our feelings. We need to sit in the uncomfortable, because in the uncomfortable, that's where I think freedom lies. That's where the best part of life is, in the uncomfortable with your feelings, but then letting them flow through you as well.
And do you have some experience with your energy body, as I call it, or energy flows? Did you get some direct experience of this?
Only through meditation, and then realizing that letting that energy flow through, those problems or those thoughts that I had, they don't matter anymore, or they're not of concern, or they're not of really that importance to me. So that's where I realized how to release or let my energy flow through me in that respect.
Yeah, so you have sort of the intuitive knowing, or the intuitive understanding that it's energy flows. Because from my experience, we experience these energy flows with our inner senses. So we have inner touch, so we can sort of feel energy flows. Or we have inner sight, inner hearing, inner smell, and inner taste. And it's when we start meditating, we start slowly to observe what type of internal senses we prefer to use to understand those energy flows that you talk about.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned, you've got your internal senses, your internal smell, your internal temperature senses as well. Because you do feel all that when you drop into yourself, and you do, if you do a scan of your body, you can almost pick up the problem areas, so to speak, and then you can sit with those feelings and feel them in those ways, and not have to think about them, because the mind can, really wonder a lot. It tells you all sorts of stories when you try and go inside yourself. You just got to sort of ignore it and be at peace.
Yeah, so I think in the beginning it's more like abstract feelings, and then after meditating for a while, you get the feeling and you know where it is in your body. And then the next step is to know where they are in the energy body. It's like, for me, it's like every time I have a thought, I sort of automatically know where that thought is generated in my energy body.
Yeah. And I think it's being aware of your thoughts, because we let ourselves just continue to think and think and think. And I remember, when I was going through my darker times, I used to catastrophize a lot and just my thoughts would just build on top of each other. And that was very detrimental to me. But now I can recognize the thought and let it go. Not Things still trigger me, don't get me wrong. However, I can recognize them, and I can also recognize how I'm reacting to them as well. So I'm continue. I like how you can recognize your thoughts in your energy body. I don't think I'm there yet, but yeah, that's something I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, when I discovered this, it was like, because when you develop this double awareness, as you say, so you hear the thoughts inside the mind, and then you can sort of look at yourself from the outside also.
Yeah.
And then I started going into every thought. I like to check the essence of every thought. And I found it to be like a note, actually, because it's like if you go deeper and deeper and deeper in, so first it's like a story, and then you go into the core of that story, then it's sort of like it's a frequency.
Yeah.
And then every thought has a different frequency. So if you sort of zoom out and you look at your thought process, it goes like
yeah. And what's the scale of frequencies again? Like love is quite high, and then shame and guilt are quite low. Hey, on the what? I can't remember that scale. Anyway, yeah. But I've definitely moved from the lower frequencies into the higher frequencies of love, and beyond that, which is awesome.
Yeah. Part of why I invited you here was because you gave some positive comments on Twitter for my latest podcast.
Yeah.
And that
The
one
with by yourself, you mean?
Yeah, and that was quite very personal to me. So I was very happy when you had positive thoughts about it. And because I'm not sure how this will be received. It's quite far away from the mainstream narrative, if you say so.
Oh, for me, no, it really resonated straight to my heart. You know how you talk about we've got Bitcoin nodes and the nodes communicate with each other. But I know you've touched on it in your previous podcasts. Our heart nodes in ourselves, our hearts communicate with all other nodes in other humans. And that's what I felt like when you did your podcast, that our nodes were connecting, not through the internet, but on a spiritual level.
Oh, that's really nice to hear. Yeah.
Yeah, and that happens often with me. I've connected with other people on Twitter. However, the feelings were coming in from the universe, not through Twitter. I know that sounds a bit odd, but yeah.
Yeah. So basically, then you understand that it's your mind and my mind talking here, but at the same time, it's your node and my node hanging out
Yes,
together. And we're sort of
correct.
using our minds as tools of communication.
Yep, yep. And that's and that's coming from people having open hearts and being receptive to that, and then realizing that that feeling's inside them at that point in time. Yeah, it's interesting how somebody can be on the other side of the world and you can still have that connection, you know.
I think having conversations like this and talking about it openly, it strengthens decentralization in the world, because
Yes.
we are not encouraging people to follow us or to look up to us in any way. It's more like we are on the path to find our own node. We want to discover our true selves. And that's what we have in common here.
Mm-hmm.
And Bitcoin
Yeah.
has brought us together because Bitcoin is decentralized and it's sort of like a template for how we can interconnect with each other.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Because we are so used to all these roles that we learn, like in school
Yeah.
and in the military and all these things. And so it's ingrained in us how we should either follow or lead. And
Yeah.
now Bitcoin is just opening up this new space for us where
Yeah.
we sort of have to reinvent how to communicate with each other on an equal, decentralized way.
Yeah. And then, you know, up until a year ago, I didn't know how to communicate with myself, you know? And that was the first amazing thing. And now I can communicate on a really, you know, spiritual level with a lot of people. But yeah, communicating with yourself and, you know, knowing and understanding your feelings is a powerful thing. It's beautiful. And then being receptive to others who also have that, not so much ability, because everyone has that ability, but is on that journey. It's amazing.
Yeah, and the conversation then is like, how can I be true to myself at the same time as I encourage you to be true to yourself?
Yeah.
Rather than winning an argument or making a point.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's tuning
Yeah.
into this, like what's actually true? Like how can you be true and I be
Yeah.
true at the same time?
It's tuning into the similar frequency almost, isn't it? I think. And I think, you know, we all know, well, I think, well, Bitcoin is truth, first of all. And I think we're all trying to find truth in ourselves and with each other.
Yeah. And as I talked about in the previous episode, it's like when we don't do that, when we are not true to ourselves, we are sacrificing our soul, we are pushing away our soul.
Yes. Yes.
And
Yes.
then we are not aligned on that network. And it's like, no, I will not be true to myself.
Mm.
Then it's like you
Yeah.
become a corrupt node.
And this is, yeah, I remember you talking about be true to yourself and what you want to be. What do you want to do? You know, I think you mentioned we all go to our fiat jobs that we probably dislike somewhat for most of the time. But really, it's all about finding what you want to do and just follow that path. Follow your heart, because your heart is where it should be at, you know? Um, and yeah, as you said, if we deviate from that, we'll, we're ignoring our soul. And I'm discovering all that at the moment, which is great. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Sometimes it can be hard also. It's because you're sort of like, I can
Yeah,
experience that I'm locked into, I have to be myself. And I
yeah.
guess it's these old trying to run away
Isn't it?
from the truth.
Yeah, fear of the unknown as well, though, hey? But as I'm learning, it's sitting in the unknown, sitting in the uncomfortable is the love bit, is the most, rewarding space, is the freedom part. Yeah. And yeah, I run away from things sometimes, but then I come back to it, I think, and go, oh yeah, and go back, go into myself and try to, surrender a little bit and go deeper.
This connects with another episode I did with Fractal Encrypt. We talked about the psychedelics.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. When you take those psychedelics, it's like you're sort of locked into having to go into those difficult places.
There's no escape there.
And as I see it, communication in the Bitcoin consciousness will be similar like that, because the awareness around a conversation, for example, like ours, like when we talk, we become more and more aware, and any strategies to try to run away from a certain topic or something like that become quite obvious. All right. So it's like we need to, and as you say, it's the value is to sit with the uncomfortable, and that sort of locks us in even more. So then we're sort of coming into this flow, similar like a trip, where whatever topics come up, we have to talk about them, because we already said that we can't run away from anything.
Yeah. I think psychedelics help break down your ego too, hey? Because we all have an ego, and the ego is useful. It's there to protect us. But I had an ego that I built up through my childhood that, served me okay for a while. But in the last, 5 years, that ego did not serve me well. And I needed to replace that or break down that ego and sort of rebuild from the bottom up. And I think when you mention, we need to move, we're all born into a fiat consciousness. I think that's exactly what I was doing, moving out of the fiat consciousness and breaking down my ego and moving more into, a freedom consciousness or a Bitcoin consciousness, I guess. And yeah, the journey continues.
When we do that, like when we say yes to that path, it's like everything that was built on lies collapses in our life. And everything that was built on truth just becomes stronger.
Yeah. That's where fiat is all the lies and Bitcoin is truth.
Yes. And this is what's happening with Bitcoin and the global financial system, right? And so it's sort of inevitable as more and more people choose truth over lies. This is just an unstoppable force.
Well, the truth hurts. It's too hard for people to look at, I suspect. But it's actually quite simple. We make life hard for ourselves with our thoughts, as I mentioned, building up on top of them. That we make it hard for ourselves.
Yeah, or you can turn it around. You can say the lies hurt, the truth liberates you. So it's not it's not the truth that is painful. It's just what it is, right?
That's right.
When the lies crashes, that's sort of was painful. So,
but then it's also I find taking responsibility for yourself is massive part of this. And Bitcoin taught me to be responsible. First, it taught me how to be responsible for my coins, but then that seeped down to every facet of my life. Responsibility for my health, responsibility for my welfare, responsibility for my spirituality, for everything to do with life. And that continues. Yeah, that's a big bright star that I see from Bitcoin.
You can almost see it as an outer representation. So when you take responsibility for your keys, on the inside you take responsibility for your thoughts. And then when you learn to set up a node, on the inside you're connecting with your soul.
Yeah, that's right. And then ironically, I've set up a node, a Bitcoin node as well that runs. And my internal node is running, and yeah, I didn't recognize it before. And now I'm responsible for it. And it's great because I am in control of its destiny, or its control of me. And it's only been positive since I've recognized that and found it.
And to draw that analogy even further, it's like when you set up your lightning node and then you create channels with others. It's like it's like you finding yourself and then start transacting on your own node rather than doing the roles that you learned, right? Your expression becomes more true because it comes from your true self. And then the lightning channels could be a representation of community. Like if you've seen this map of all the lightning channels connecting together, it's like an amazing community.
Yeah, that's something I still have to do, is set up the lightning channels, but I will. So I have started a conversation with somebody, just haven't gone through the process yet. So
let me know
I can see where you're going with it.
When you're up and running, and we can connect also in that realm.
Yeah, great. Yeah. Everything, Bitcoin has taught me so much. And as I said, responsibility is one. It's taught me, don't trust, verify. And on my Twitter handle, it says, external me, don't trust, verify, and internal me, trust your heart. And that's exactly what Bitcoin is telling me to do. And it's worked. It's unbelievable. For me, it's as simple as that almost. Trust your heart.
Yeah, it's like a new space open up when we start living with our heart rather than with our mind. It's
let the heart tell the mind what to do. Don't let the mind tell the heart what to do.
Yeah, and that changes everything.
Yeah. And that's a subconscious thing, I guess. We don't want to validate our decisions from external sources, but really, you don't need to.
So the mind is constantly referring to the past, right? It's built around models from the past, and the heart is beyond time. It's not non-linear. And it can move us into possibilities that are not painted by the past.
I think our mind tries to play out the future, though, as well. It tries to envisage the future
based on data from the past. Yeah,
correct. And we don't spend enough time in the present. The mind's always looking, seeking validations from, as you said, past experiences. But we need to let the past experiences go almost. And through my journey, I know that I do. Through my traumas, through losing family members and whatnot. I connected a lot of dots in the last 2 years. I'm truly grateful for what, the people around me or my family has given me over those years. Very easy. I was, very easy to look back at those years and be very angry at my parents or I don't know, playing the victim almost. But when I look back at it now, it was a beautiful thing. They did the best they could, and they taught me so much. So that's the way I've changed the way I look at things in my past. And I didn't change it, just my feelings. I'm accepting of them, but in a beautiful, bright way.
Yeah, I think in the fiat consciousness, the tactic is to push everything away. So
then
to let the mind run everything. And the feelings, emotions, memories, they're just sort of distractions that we don't want, because we have a clear goal, what we want, and trying to clear away all the problems so the mind can run the body.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing is, we hold on to our problems too long as well in our mind. And then we hold on to our feelings. We don't let the feelings flow, and that causes problems in the future, both physically and spiritually and mentally, I think. It's important to let that energy flow. Otherwise, that will show up detrimentally in some form down in your future, I feel. I think that's the problem with, the fiat consciousness in society. We're so disconnected with ourselves, and we're so disconnected with the earth, and so disconnected with, the goddess Mother Nature, that we've lost the ability to connect with ourselves.
And the virus then is fear, right? And fear is causing us to control all of these things and to hold on to these things. So if you see this system of flows, and then this virus comes in with fear, like, and that's why things start stagnating.
Fear. There's nothing to be fearful of. There's nothing. You don't even need to fear, I think. But that's the way, you install fear into people, and that's how you're controlled. You let go of the fear and you replace it with love, and sovereign individual.
So let's go into a difficult topic then of this. So now conceptually we have sort of agreed that blocking and controlling and fear is not healthy. But if we talk about money, then many spiritual people even, but that's separate. There you have to control. There you have to you have to go to work and you have to earn the money. So sometimes even spiritual people see this as something separate. But if we see everything as energies, everything is frequency flowing, shouldn't also money then have a flow, and like inflow, outflow, and that it should be balanced there?
Yeah, it sounds like you're talking about a free market here, which it should be. Decentralized free market, Austrian economics. That's exactly what it should be. I've done a lot of reading on Austrian economics recently as well. That's just another eye-opening thing. And, the cycle of it should be a natural cycle. Bankruptcies should be natural. Yet, in our current society, we prevent them. We bail people out. And that is not the natural flow of the world at all. And that's going to come back and bite us, I feel.
Because if we surrender as individuals and society, then everything that is false will crumble. And that means like bankruptcies, or it could be a relationship that was not productive for anything.
Yeah, it's the natural order.
And these bailouts is this typical trying to hold the lies alive rather than letting them crumble.
They're full of fear, these people. They're fearful of if they don't bail out, or they're fearful that they can't let their way of life or their, social standing change, but that needs to be. That's the way nature is.
It's like they haven't experienced this surrender and experienced how the truth, what is true, grows and becomes stronger. It's like they don't trust that mechanism in nature, so rather than risking, we try to support this false thing rather than just letting what is true grow naturally, like the flowers in the field or whatever.
Exactly. They'll just rather kick the can down the road, so to speak, and just build upon the lies. And fortunately, that will end. But it won't be pretty for a lot of people.
Well, I think it's important to continually look at the macro global situation and to look at the parallels in our personal life.
Yeah.
Because we are doing much the same in many aspects. It's like we are afraid to live without certain things. So we are actually bailing out different habits, like smoking or something like that, So it's like, no, we are afraid to see, like natural health come in. We don't trust it would be. So I will hold on to this because it makes me feel safe, the smoking, for example. So it's like you're bailing out the smoking habit by continuing to give it your life force.
Yeah. Oh, no, I totally agree with that. And it is, we all like to feel safe, don't we? We don't like the uncomfortable, but again, that's where the freedom is, in the uncomfortable. Because I think it still comes back, if you do trust yourself, you'll be okay. And I certainly learnt those tools, or gained those tools coming out of the men's retreat, that, whatever happens, I will be okay. I have the tools to deal with it. And that's a powerful feeling.
Yeah. And if you look at it, this smoking habit, for example, basically it's a program that you installed in yourself when you were 14 or 19 or whatever. And you manage to create a program that makes you feel a certain way. It's sort of like a state of being. And then you have, if I take this cigarette, I put this here, I feel like this. Right. And then for the rest of the life, you're just replaying that program every time you think you need it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good analogy. I did smoke for 10 years myself, and then I did stop probably 20 years ago. So, or even more. But yeah, it's so easy to fall back into the comfort and to move out of that. That's the joy.
To come back into the moment rather than replaying something from 20 years ago. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to sit safe in the present moment without having any loops from the past that you feel need to replay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I come up with this model the other week that if we are not in the present moment, we are replaying a moment from the past. That's our programs. So some programs we have, they're like from the childhood, or some programs we created maybe 3 years ago. And so basically, we're always running these programs unless we are in the present moment. And every time we run the programs, they become more ingrained. So if you had a program has been with you for 30 years, it feels very safe, because you know exactly what will happen. So you run it and you feel safe. And the more times you repeat a pattern, the lower frequency it is. Because it's like, if you have this from 30 years, you run it like 30,000 times.
Yeah.
For every time, it sort of lowers the frequency because it becomes more and more ingrained. Boom, boom, boom.
On that, with the new programs, where are they coming from? Well, I know they're coming from the universe. You putting stuff out into the universe and then stuff landing in you is the new programs coming in, I guess.
Well, that's an interesting question.
Because then it's more subconscious.
So you mean like new habits or new ideas or things like
Not
this?
so much new habits. Yeah, maybe new habits. But you breaking down the old barriers or old programs of yourself, you have to allow the new ones in first to break the old ones down? Or do you see it as you need to break the old ones down and then new programs build on top? Because I see it as allowing new ones in, and that allows you to break the old programs down.
Okay, this is an interesting area. I mean, it's nice to be empty. to not have any programs. And that's actually when you're in the present moment, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you're a blank
yeah,
sheet every day. And I
yeah.
guess it's just the programs then are not in form.
Mm.
They're just potential. So you don't
Yeah,
have
I
really
guess I'm
poor
referring that.
programs, but more potential.
Yeah. I'm thinking about them, the programs in your subconscious. So you're not conscious about your programs, that's happening, but there is a point where you do become conscious that that's program has been removed and that a new one has been installed. So I agree with the blank slate, and I get most of my blank slate in the present when I'm meditating. That's my blank slate.
Okay.
So I might be subconsciously removing a program or pushing a program away subconsciously when I'm meditating, and then I don't know, new programs come in subconsciously without.
Can you give an example of a new program?
Um, the fact that I give time to myself, and that can be in the form of meditating every day, or that can be in the form of running every morning. Um, and that's what I do every morning. And that is a program, and that's giving time to myself, allowing me to look inside myself without any external involvement.
One model I have is that different levels of consciousness or like different radio channels.
Mm-hmm.
So all programs basically are fixed. So we are stuck in different radio channels and we have to repeat those until we solve them inside. So that's the old programs.
Mm-hmm.
And then the new ones, it's like in meditation and so on, we access new radio channels. And I don't see them as fixed programs. I see them more as frequencies of potential. So in meditation, you stretch into these higher frequencies and you sort of get
Yeah.
inspiration and you
Yeah.
get visions or you
Yeah.
get. So basically, you can say, if I would run every day, I would have much more potential and it would be much more beneficial for me and everyone around me. That's sort of a concept, right? And then when
Mm-hmm.
you come out of meditation, you remember that insight
Yeah.
from that higher
Mm-hmm.
consciousness. And then from that, you create habits. So it's more like an insight. And then with your mind, you create a habit to make that a
Yeah.
reality.
Yeah. And I'll give you an example of that. Actually, there was an exercise I did after the men's retreat, and the exercise was think of yourself in the next 5 to 10 years where you'll be, and answer the following questions: Who will you be with? And where will you be? And what does your typical day look like? And that was an amazing exercise to actually write down on paper, because that brings everything out of you where you're focusing to, I guess, from your heart. And it forces you to actually put it down on paper. And then that puts that out into the universe. And then subconsciously moving from there, you are working towards those, not so much goals, but to those, what you had, your visions of where you would be in the next 5 to 10 years. So I do see that playing out in my life at the moment. So,
Yeah, and then on it goes, right? So as
mm,
more old programs with lower frequency we let go of, we can go to even higher consciousness. And the
yeah,
higher we go, the more win-win kind of concepts we find.
yeah,
So,
it's perpetually moving.
and then we start living from these higher concepts. So where your actions benefit yourself and benefit others at the same time. that doesn't exist in the lower frequencies, because it's all about win-lose.
Yeah. And I think whether people are on your frequency or not, they pick up on the fact where your frequency is at. And I certainly have seen the higher frequencies you are running at, more things come to you, the more, the universe gives to you, the more stuff lands in front of you that you never thought would ever sort of occur, I guess.
Yeah, and then you have this with karma or cause and effect, because if the universe is sort of mathematical, as we can see through Bitcoin, it's really like, if you do something, an action, it's like a number, and it needs to have a consequence. And if we think about that in terms of frequencies, like lower frequencies, lower consciousness, it has this win-lose. So if you could do something from a lower consciousness, then the consequence is also negative.
Yeah. I also see our feelings as being neutral, as in the fact that they are balanced and they have an equal number of positive and negative sides. And when we feel our feelings, I think it's because we see more or less of a positive or a negative side. And that's a feeling.
Another aspect is that the higher we go, the more empathic we become. So, like you said, that you could connect with other people on an energy level. And when we do that, it's no way around that your actions actually impact yourself, because you can actually feel directly that if you do something negative to another person, that person feels bad, and then you feel it. You experience that person feeling bad.
Yeah. And empathy is a very, I struggled with empathy for a long time, but currently I'm being able to feel other people's responses to my actions, which seems simple, but a lot of us don't have that ability, or we ignore it. Yeah, especially with my children. It's been amazing, the connection I've built up in the last year with them, because kids have such an open heart still. They haven't been as much corrupted as adults, I guess. So I can still tap into that beautiful innocence of my kids. It's great. And that's given me a lot of meaning, the meaningfulness of I've got now inside of me is phenomenal. So
I think this is something we need to get used to. Like, you're communicating with your kids, and like we are doing here in this podcast, because I want more and more people to experience living in the Bitcoin consciousness. And it's really this transparency, because it's like, you communicate with words, with concepts, but that's just one part of it. It's like everyone in the Bitcoin consciousness can also feel what the other person's intention is, or the emotions around it, or if he's speaking the truth or not. And to be able to communicate on that level. This is something I had to hide. And
you're hiding yourself, eh?
Yeah, and it was just a problem for me, because it's just caused problems. So for me, it's just like, oh yeah, now the world is catching up, and we are actually able to tap into this, and I'm allowed to.
Yeah, but you don't need to. You didn't need to give yourself permission. You just had to do it, didn't you? Or
what do you mean now?
So,
you mean? Yeah.
So I'm asking you a question now, because I can resonate with this quite a bit. I could never feel I could be myself, And now in the last year, I felt I can be myself, and that's great. I can trust myself to be myself. And if people want to talk to me, great. I'll talk to them. But before, I think I was, yeah, I was full of fear. I was scared to be myself. My ego wasn't allowing me to. It was protecting that vulnerable person underneath. But now, I don't mind being vulnerable. It's it gives you strength to be vulnerable. Yeah, I don't feel like I need permission almost to be myself. Because beforehand, I thought, again, we're creating stories around who we should be or what we should be. But now I've dropped all that, I think.
Yeah, for me, it's been a very long journey to, like, nowadays, I see my abilities as something positive, but for a long time, it was a negative.
Mm.
And I was just trying to fit in to
Wow.
society because
Yeah.
I didn't meet anyone who could see my abilities as something positive. They were always just
Wow.
something negative.
Wow. Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah, so it's really nice that we're sitting here able to be ourselves.
Well, yeah, it's a simple thing, isn't it? But such a rewarding experience too.
Don't have to wrap up our vulnerable core with concepts and titles.
Yeah. 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 We're so taught that you always have to be something in life or, you know, work hard, earn money, whatever. You must earn this and that. And yeah. But really that's not the that's not the key to anything. Yeah. What matters is what's inside, really, and how communicate and interact with others.
So are you switching to completely inside out? Because I know it's a gradual process, right? It's like
It is, yeah.
we can't let go of everything. We need to sort of let the external reality piece by piece start
Oh, it is.
changing the programming.
It is definitely piece by piece. But I look around me and I'm very fortunate, I guess, in what I have, but I don't actually need all these things that I have. And sometimes I think it would be easier not to have these things that I have. Much more, we complicate life with stuff. Yeah, we just make it too hard for ourselves. But as going back to, I said, we've just detached so much from each other and ourselves and the earth. Um, yeah, it's a really destructive field. It's a very destructive environment, and that's what I want to get away from, and I am. So yeah, just be present, see the simple things, just be still, feel your feelings, feel the air, listen to the sounds, smell. It's simple, beautiful.
Yeah. This conversation has really strengthened me and given me confirmation on various levels of, like, around how a podcast should be, what you should talk to. It's like, as we have been talking here, many of those projections have sort of left me, and we are sitting here in the present moment and sharing our
Yeah,
thoughts while enjoying
yeah,
each other's company. And like, the podcast is just
yeah,
happening.
yeah. Happening. Just let it flow. Like floating down a river. Just let life take you where the stream takes you, and that's all. It's as simple as that. Um, but everyone wants to interfere and change it, and yeah, you can't change it. No, it's just a beautiful thing to think that you can't change the flow of your life, and in trauma there is wisdom, and that's where I'm at. It's so easy to be a victim and so easy to be, you know, in fear and suffering, but then again, it's easy to be on the other side of that as well. You just need to go inside and work that out for yourself.
Yeah, and I think this is really where I'm at on my journey. It's like, because I've spent a lot of time sitting with the uncomfortable on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's easy for me. But
Yeah, because if you said uncomfortable on your own, I would think that's quite a good place to be, actually.
yeah, but now the next
Yeah,
step is to do it together,
yeah,
like we're doing here, you know?
yeah,
So it's
yeah.
like we're going with the flow. And even if something is uncomfortable, I know that you know the value of still going through with it.
Oh, I do. Yeah, I've seen the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, so to speak. I've seen it.
So in a way, a conversation like this is valuable because it's healing. It's
Oh yeah,
you are sitting with your uncomfortability and I'm sitting with my uncomfortability, and we're just going with that flow, not the flow of running away, not the flow of distraction,
no,
but just like, okay,
yeah,
what's here for us today? And
yeah,
we're just sort of digging into it, keeping
yeah,
it real.
yeah. It is. It is. It's real, isn't it? And I know you mentioned if I put something out there, what came to me as an energy thing, and I will say, I had thought to myself, it'd be great to go on Sama's podcast one day, and here we are, you know.
Yes.
And I put it out to the universe a week ago, and it happened. You see,
Indeed.
and that may sound simple, but it's a really it's just a great example of what we were talking about. Open nodes, open reception, you know. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a great place to finish for today. But I think it would be great to have you on again, maybe in
Yeah.
half a year or 1 year. I don't know.
Yeah. That might time well because I'm going to go on an ayahuasca retreat next year.
Yeah.
And that should be an interesting conversation after that, I suspect.
Yeah. Will it be for how long?
Just 3 days.
Yeah.
That should be an experience.
All right. So
yeah, look, Sama, thank you so much. I'm so grateful for that. That was great.
Yeah, thank you. I will put your Twitter handle in the description and let's be in touch.
Yeah, man. Oh, yeah, you'll see me on Twitter.